welcome to the first angel story titled Gage's Girls. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, and behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. Genesis chapter 28, verse 12. December 24, 2001 started out like any other Christmas Eve for the townspeople of Macon, New Brunswick. Last-minute shoppers mingled with church and partygoers, and despite the rainy weather, a sense of anticipation filled the air. 24-year-old Toby Gabriel and her 3-year-old son Gage were part of the happy throng. Toby, a resident of Toronto, had driven to her hometown of Macon to spend the holidays with her son and her mother. Sometime around 2 o'clock in the afternoon on this gloomy Christmas Eve, Toby grew restless. She bundled Gage in a warm sweater and sweatpants, grabbed her coat, and headed for the door. "We're going out to rent a movie, Mom. We'll be right back." Her mother, elbow deep in food preparation, barely noticed. Toby and Gage never returned. About 11 o'clock at night, Toby's concerned mother phoned the police. It was almost Christmas, and brightly wrapped presents for her grandson were under the tree. Where could Toby and Gage be? It was a little early for the police to suspect foul play. Toby had many friends to visit, and perhaps Gage had fallen asleep while in someone's home and the adults didn't want to wake him. Despite a now freezing rain, there had been no accidents reported. Toby should have phoned, but she turned up. Such missing persons usually did. Early the next morning, Linda Bellevue of the nearby town of Lower Cove went out to watch for her parents, whom she expected for Christmas morning breakfast. It was dark and wet, and even more so along the shore area of the Bay of Fundy. "I was glad I had left the lights on all night after I returned from midnight mass," said Linda. The candles and manger scene were the only sources of illumination along the whole beach. Despite the roar of the waves behind her, Linda thought she heard a cry, like that of a baby. Impossible! No children would be out on this frigid dawn. The cry sounded again, mournful and frightened, Linda says. Somehow I felt compelled to find out what it was. Linda hurried toward the sound, and ahead of her, alongside the shore, she saw a strange shape. As she neared it, Linda gasped. It was a car, lying upside down in the sand just a short distance from the surf. Linda realized that the car had probably plunged off the steep side of a nearby cliff, an area of highway known for being dangerous. There had been plenty of ice last night. She quickened her step. Surely no one could have survived. Yet she kept hearing that little wail. Suddenly she made out a small figure on the sand, crawling toward her. It was a tiny child, scooting along on his elbows and weeping inconsolably. "Honey!" Linda ran to him. "How did you get here? What happened?" His clothes were soaked, and she tore off her own coat to wrap it around him. The child clutched her. "Mommy," he whispered. In the growing dawn, Linda saw what must be a body floating face down in the water. It was this child's mother. Was there any hope for her? Linda had been picking up the little boy, but she paused. "I'll go and help your mommy," she told him. But the child tightened his grip on her. "No," he cried. "Don't go there." She wondered what terrors he had been through during the night, what he had seen, how long he had been on this lonely, freezing beach. "What's your name, sweetheart?" she asked. "Gage Gabriel." "I lost my ducky boots." "We'll buy you another pair," Linda promised as she lifted him up once more. "I'll bring you back to my house and get you warm." She saw her parents' car pulling up. She decided that her dad could take charge of the scene because from the way Gage was clinging to her, she knew she'd be going to the hospital with him. This was going to be a Christmas morning like no other. Toby Gabriel had died on impact. Preliminary investigations found that she had not been wearing her seatbelt and that drugs or alcohol had not been involved. She had probably lost control of the car when she hit a patch of frozen sea spray. At least one passing driver had noticed skid marks on the road at about 10 o'clock at night, but police speculated that the accident had occurred several hours earlier, before Toby had been visiting friends and had left for home with Gage sometime after 6. Questions lingered about Gage. It appeared as if he had been lying down in the back seat, asleep. Since the car had rolled over at least twice and shattered glass had flown, shouldn't he have sustained more severe injuries than a bump on the head and bruised hips? How had he suffered only frostbitten toes during an estimated 12 hours of below freezing temperatures, wearing just a wet sweater and knit pants? Had he slept or been unconscious for part of that time? Had he stayed in the car or crawled along the beach? Linda was glad she had left her lights on all night. Although he couldn't tell us, I'd like to think that perhaps he saw Jesus in the shepherds and wasn't so afraid. Perhaps even more miraculous, according to Sergeant Dale Bogle of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, was that Gage didn't drown. Usually during high tide, the area where the car was found should be underwater. Since Gage was on the beach during a complete tidal cycle, no one knows why the water did not come in all the way to the cliff that night. Most of it is a mystery, but not all of it. Sergeant Bogle was visiting Gage in Amethyst Hospital just a few hours after his rescue, asking him some gentle questions. When the little boy looked up, "I saw 2 girls," he announced matter-of-factly. The officer was taken aback. "You did? Where?" "Standing in the water next to Mommy," Gage answered. "Their dresses were white." "Did they talk to you?" "No, they smiled at me. They smiled at me all night until that other lady came." Gage reported the same story to his dad and later his grandmother, and added that the girls seemed to have wings. "Were they ladies?" his grandmother asked. "No," Gage was definite. "Girls." How could a child of 3 come up with something like this? Sergeant Bogle voiced this question as he shared the story with his fellow officers. They had no answers. No one had interviewed Gage yet. There had been no chance to plant such an idea in his mind, if anyone would. No one was sure that Gage had ever been told about angels. Gage now lives with his father. His grandfather calls him a gift from God. He seems happy and well adjusted and rarely speaks of that difficult night. For those who care about him, there remains just a little hint of mystery, of wonder, of joy in the midst of loss, and the hope that the girls who comforted him on that dark and lonely beach will watch over him forever. Thank you for joining me for this first angel story called Gage's Girls, and I look forward to next week as we look at our second angel story, and it will be titled Guardian in the Tower. Until next week, take care, be joyful, and stay safe, and I'll see you soon.